Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 3. We'll discuss about Discourse and Pragmatics. Before we start our discussion, let me introduce ourselves. Kurnia Lestari as moderator, and my friend Indah Wulandari and HerlindaWati Ester Nainggolan. The first material will be explained by Indah Wulandari. Indah, time is yours.
Okay. Okay, so the first is about pragmatic. Pragmatic is a branch of linguistics that deals with the use of language in social, textual context and the ways in which people generate and understand meaning through language. Pragmatic assumes that when we usually follow some kind of cooperative principle. That is, they have a common understanding of how they should cooperate in their communication. Next slide, please. And speech of act. Speech of act is about performance of action by speakers to describe actions such as making requests, giving orders, making promise, giving advice, and making threat. So if someone say it's hot in here, they're not just referring to the temperature. They're probably also asking someone to do something like turn on the air conditioner. There are three types of action contained in speech of act. First, locutionary act. Refer to the literal meaning of the actual word, such as it's hot here. The sentence refers to the temperature. And second, educational act refer to the speaker's intention in pronouncing words such as asking someone to turn on the air conditioner. And the last, revolutionary, refer to speech has on another person, such as someone on the air conditioner. Next slide, please. And next, the direct and indirect speech of act. When there is a direct relationship between structure and function, we have a direct speech act. For example, 1, I tell you I'm not going, and 2, I am telling you that it is hot outside. When there is an indirect relationship between structure and function, we have an indirect speech act. For example, can you come tomorrow? Or I didn't know I made you angry. Next slide, please. Next is about felicity condition. An important idea in speech act theory is the concept of the condition of felicity. Austin argues that there are several conditions that must be implemented. First, there must be a generally accepted procedure for successfully carrying out a speech act, such as inviting someone to a wedding through the use of a formal letter. Second, the circumstances must be appropriate for the use of speech act. Third, the speech act must be used by the right person, such as the bride, family of the woman or the man. Next slide, please. Next slide is about presupposition. Presupposition refer to the similarities that are assumed to exist between language users, such as assumption about knowledge about a situation or the word. This comes from sources such as book, television, and the internet, or through personal experience. Type of presupposition. 1. Conventional presupposition are less context-dependent pragmatic presupposition. They are usually associated with certain linguistic form. For example, Would you like something? Recommend something that is already prepared. Whereas, would you like to drink something? That will suggest something that is not prepared. 2. Pragmatic presupposition. Our context depend and arise from the use of an utterance in a particular context. For example, customers know that they need to take a ticket from a ticket machine and wait their turn to be served. This is the person with the ticket number 2, and it is the next to be served. Next slide, please. The cooperative principle, a principle proposed by the philosopher Paul Grice, whereby those involved in communication assumes that both parties will normally seek to cooperate with each other to establish a great meaning. It is composed of 4 maxims: quality, quantity, relations, and manner. For example, mother, where is the house key? And the doctor replied with, the key is on the table, mom. The doctor has answered clearly, that was manner, and truthfully, that was quality, has given the right amount of information, that was quantity, and has directly addresses her mom goals in asking the question, that was relation. She has said precisely that she means no more and no less. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Indah. And the second material will be explained by me. Flouting the cooperative. On some occasions, speakers flout the cooperative principle and intend their hearer to understand this. That is, they purposely do not observe the maxim and intend their hearer to be aware of this. For example, Chinese student, what do you do in America? American student, I work in a bank. Chinese student, it's a good job, isn't it? American student, well, just so. So, Chinese student, then how much is your salary every month? American student, oh no. Chinese student, what's wrong? American student, why are you asking that? Chinese student, just asking, nothing else. American student, the station isn't far, is it? Here the question the Chinese student has asked does not observe the maxim of relation for an English conversation of this kind. He is not aware of this, although the American student clearly is. He then asks her if she is traveling alone and if she is married. The American student quickly hails a taxi and takes it to the station. Differences between flouting and violating maxims. Thomas, 1995, and Cutting, 2008, discuss differences between flouting and violating maxims. A speaker is flouting a maxim if they do not observe a maxim but has no intention of deceiving or misleading the other person. A person is violating a maxim if there is a likelihood that they are liable to mislead the other person. For example, Mom is gone on a little holiday because she needs a rest. The next slide, please. Cultural pragmatics. The ways in which people perform speech acts and what they mean by what they say when they perform them often varies across cultures. Studies which investigate the cross-cultural use of speech acts are commonly referred to as cross-cultural pragmatics. As Wizard And this is the example of cross-cultural pragmatics. And the next is conversational implicature. Conversational implicature refers to the inference a hearer makes about a speaker's intended meaning that arises from the use of the literal meaning of what the speaker said, the conversational principle and its maxim. For example, if I say, there's nothing of the movies, I do not mean nothing at all, but rather nothing that I'm interested in seeing. Next slide, please. Conventional and particularized conversational implicatures. Conventional implicatures, no particular context is required in order to derive the implicator. Example, A. I hope you brought the bread and cheese. B. I brought the bread. Particularized conversational implicators. Particularized conversational implicators, however, are derived from a particular context rather than from the use of the words alone. Example, A. You're out of coffee. B. Don't worry, there's a shop on the corner. Next slide, please. Okay, that's all from me. Time is yours.
Alright, thank you, Natasya, for this occasion. So now I would like to explain the next material. It's about politeness, space, and discourse. So as we can see in the screen, to further the key notion in the area of pragmatics and discourse are politeness and space. The notion of space comes from Goffman in 1967, work on space, and from the English folk notion of space, which ties up with notion of being embraced, humiliated, or losing face. Politeness principles and cooperative principles, however, are often in conflict with each other. There are also situations in which one principle might become more important than another. And in an emergency situation, for example, there is less need to be polite than, say, in a normal situation. Next, involvement and independence in spoken and written discourse. To further its use in discussion of faith and politeness, the notion of involvement and independence. The term involvement refers to the need people have to be involved with others, and to show this involvement, there is a person's right and need to be considered a normal, contributing, supporting member of society. In other words, to be treated as a member of group. We must show this involvement by showing our interest in someone, by agreeing with them, by approving what they are doing, or by using in-group identity markers such as give names or nicknames. And the independence part of speech refers to a person right not be dominated by others, not to be imposed on by others, and to be able to act with some sense of individuality or autonomy. We do this, for example, by not presuming other people needs or interest, by giving option, by not imposing on other people, and by apologizing for interruption. Okay. In the next slide, it's about choosing a politeness strategy. We draw on a number of consideration when we decide on a choice of politeness strategy. First, consider how socially closer or distant we are from our hearer. For example, are we close friends? Are the hearer older than us? Or are we social equals? Second, consider how much or how little power the hearer has over us. For example, are you talking to your boss or to your employer, to a policeman, to a service employee, or to a judge? And last, we may also consider how significant what we want are to us and to the person we are talking to. For example, are we asking for change, for a loan, or to borrow a car? We may consider how much emphasis both of us in our culture or cultures place on involvement and independence in circumstances like the one we are in. And we may consider whether both of us will have the same answer to this question. Next, praise and politeness across cultures. It is important to point out that the specific nature of praise and politeness varies from society to society and from culture to culture. For example, in some cultures, the idea of personal speech and independence may vary. In some societies, parents have more right to interfere in the domestic affairs of adult children than in others, and in some cultures, a bedroom is private and cannot be entered. In some cultures, refusal of an offer may be merely polite, even if to an English speaker, a refusal may seem like refusing involvement. Gift giving is an example of politeness strategy that varies across culture. Brown and Levington list gift giving as a positive politeness strategy in English, or in Skolon and Wong Skolon term an involvement strategy. We may spend a lot of time deciding what to buy for the gift, think about what the person receiving the gift will feel about what we have bought them, and what their reaction to our gift might be. In Japanese culture, however, there are times when gift giving may mean something quite different from this and be more of a social ritual rather than a positive politeness strategy. Japanese have many gift-giving occasions throughout the year that cover many events in Japanese life where gift-giving is more ritual or an expression of duty. The gift-giving may still have the function of maintaining social relationship, but be much less an expression of intimacy and rapport than it might be in an English-speaking country. Politeness and gender. Politeness strategies have also been shown to vary according to gender. Holmes in 1995 discusses this at links showing differences in the use of politeness strategies between men and women. Her work reveals that the relationship between sex, politeness, and language is a complex one, and that while research shows that overall women are more polite than men. It also depends on what we mean by polite, as well as which women and men are being compared and what setting or community of practice the interaction occurs. There is the particular local condition in which the man or woman is speaking. Mills in 2003 points out that context has an important role to play in terms of whether what someone say is interpreted as polite or not. She gives the example of street remarks. To illustrate this, if, for example, we say hello, Georges, to a longtime friend when we see her, this can be taken as an expression of intimacy and rapport that is a positive politeness or involvement strategy. If, however, someone calls this out from a building site to a woman walking by, this can have the opposite effect. For the woman, it may be an act of harassment. It is not always the case that hello Georges is a positive politeness strategy. At least for the person it is being said to. We need then to consider who is saying what, to whom, from what position, where, and for what purpose in order to come to a closer understanding of this. The next slide is about face-threatening acts. Some acts threaten a person's face. These are called face-threatening acts. To take the edge of the face-threatening acts, we often use mitigation device in conversation to take the edge of face-threatening acts. One example is the use of press sequence. For example, are you doing anything? Are you doing anything after work? It is a pre-sequence. And B, why are you asking? A, I thought we might go for a drink. It is an indirect speech act. And B, well, no, nothing in particular. Where would like to go? And the last material is about politeness and cross-cultural pragmatic failure. It is important to remember that the particular nature of face varies across cultures and that politeness strategies are not necessarily universal. Matsumoto, for example, argues that the use of difference in Japanese in an indication of social register and relationship and not a politeness strategy. Gu and Mao equally argue that the politeness model proposed by Brown and Levinson in their politeness, some universal language usage, for example, does not suit Chinese. A lack of understanding of ways of expressing politeness in different language and culture can be a cause of cross-cultural pragmatic failures. All right, I think that's all I can explain. Back to Natasya as moderator.
Okay, thank you for HerlindaWati Ester Nainggolan. And now I will read the summary of this material. It is important, however, not to take English as the language mathematics research. Many researchers discuss the importance of pragmatic competence. Much of the research in the area of pragmatics and language learning has examined pragmatic development in terms of the acquisition of particular speech. Results of this research indicate that language learners have difficulties in pragmatics, regardless of their level of grammatical. As Tanaka argues, the development of second language learners' pragmatic competence needs to remain an important goal of language learning classrooms, as pragmatic failure can deny learners access I'm sorry, there's a disruption. So the summary of this discussion is it is crucial part of discourse competence and in turn communicative competence. And that's all from our group. See you in the next meeting. Bye-bye.